Good evening, folks. No noise, no air conditioner, no fan. But the vent closed itself, or I failed to open it, one or the other. So I'll go ahead and open it. You'll hear the fan for a moment till I throttle it back. We need to talk a bit, and I thank you for joining me once again. It's Dr. John Taylor Kent. I'm a retired corrections psychologist. I got a new mission in life, and that is to turn this nation into 5% minimum daily Bible readers, people who understand the truth that's in the Bible. So to that ends, the sole sponsorship, the sole group that I represent, has produced the best Bible to date in the English language. That is the proper name version of the King James Bible. How is it different? Well, it's modern English, copyrighted in 2015, and it's different than the King James Version. The syntax is modern English instead of reversed. Old English was reversed because we came from ancient Israel, and remember, the Israelites wrote right to left, and we Saxons, descendants of Isaac's sons, we today write left to right. So go hit that link, buy a copy of that Bible. That's how you support my channel. I get a small commission from those. Oh, the dog is playing with the blood pressure machine. She likes to trigger it off. She figured out how to do that, and now it keeps her entertained. Lorraine, leave it alone. Oh my God. I better go shut that thing off. It sounds like it's going off. I'll be darned. It's not the blood pressure machine. It's the fan overhead. It's just throttled itself back slightly. Okay. We have got structural inflation at this point. That's what they're going to call it. In other words, the theft is embedded in there. In order for these banksters to live according to the standard to which they've become accustomed, they have to steal from us a little bit more directly now. So the theft is embedded in it. And our government is what is doing the thieving from us. And the bankers just give them a little bit of cover, if you will. But it's really our own government. No, lay down. Kennel. I get tired of getting licked. Getting cleaned. Lay down. She wants more attention. She still has an open wound on her leg. I gave her a little bit more medicine. I also took her out a second time to run her, and that was a mistake. Not taking her out that far. She's maybe doing a mile. And, well, I just got to get her to lay down more and to relax more. Lorraine, kennel. So what we have is structural inflation, and it's running about 20%. If you do it the old way, before the government decided to hide their theft, their malfeasance, because that's what it is. And if you're really a conservative, you want to cut this government back. And if we got rid of all the unnecessary parts of this government, we could probably manage the budget again and balance the budget. And by the way, you can do that without an income tax. We did it for most of the time of the country. How did we do it? Rather than taxing income on a graduated, progressive, communist basis, we had tariffs and duties at the borders. But then our congressmen decided to send money abroad, foreign aid, so they could get kickbacks from that. And they decided that they were going to go ahead and get bribed to ship the businesses abroad. And so they started to play most favorite nation stuff. And the way it's supposed to work is everybody pays the same toll to bring their products and services across our border. And that money goes into the treasury. And that's how we fund the central government, from the tariffs and duties. But we change that around under the false god of free trade. There's no such thing as free trade. And so at this point, these folks that run the country have decided to do away with the middle class. They've already marginalized us to a very large extent, and they're doing their best to finish us off. They're going to debase the currency to the point where we are going to lose our retirements, our savings, whatever we think we have. We're not going to have it, and the wealthy are going to get wealthier. We need to get rid of the IRS. We need to return to tariffs and duties at the border. And the sooner we do that, the better. And that also gives us a level playing field inside the country. Because as it is, it's not a level playing field. Our government gives more money to the invaders, the illegals, the people entering our country illegally. And they also give more money to Democrat causes. Back when, as soon as Barack Obama became president, they decided to close up the Republican-owned car dealerships to discriminate against Republicans. So it became an economic war, and that's exactly what they did. So a lot of Republican-owned leaning people that leaned Republican, they had their dealerships removed from them. So we're in deep trouble today. The government has required too much. We don't have private ownership. If we had private ownership, you could rent to whoever you wanted to without the government nosing in your business, without the government requiring you to give an explanation to prove you aren't racist. Okay? Why can't you rent to who you want? Why can't you rent to the best people that you get along with, that respects your property values, that looks out for things, that has the same understanding, that understands the social contract, and will treat you right, and will help you take care of your property? Instead, you get entitled sons of a bitches who want to put a drag on you and want it to cost you as much as they can because they don't like you. They think you're racist. They're racist. So we need to level the playing field. And we also, by getting rid of the IRS, get rid of nonprofit status. And nonprofits don't have to abide by the same rules, regulations, the laws that the rest of us have to. We're burdened by that, and they're not. They're given special indulgences, special privileges. So we need to level the playing field once again, and that way the motivation to work will be restored, and the work ethic might return, and we might actually have a more intact, stronger culture with more wealth. And that's another thing. You don't have any money. You're being given IOU notes. You're being given debt notes. And that's not money. And that's not constitutional. It's not legal, and they forced it off on us. So we need to go back to honest money. If you had honest money, they couldn't manipulate us into wars the way they do today. So realize that the Federal Reserve System had to exist before World War I occurred. And since then, we've been at war perpetually. So, what do I want you to do? I'd like you to buy my Bible. You don't want it for yourself? Make it a gift. Some of you like to do ministries, like prison ministries. These Bibles are better than the other Bibles. Take those into the inmates. Give those to the inmates. They can sit on their butts and read. They've got time. As a matter of fact, a lot of them know the Bible far better than people on the outside by a long shot. And it can change, does change a man's life. Changes a woman's life too. We are going to get into women's roles more in the Bible and to some other aspects about our culture. I want to have a series on sugar babies to let women know how that culture is deteriorated just like everything else across the nation. And that's not the best way to go. Don't glorify that life and think of it as beauty. You know, it's a short-lived life and you sell yourself short, it's not very fulfilling, and you end up alone. So if you see these old people, I'm calling them old people, so they're older than I am. These couples that have been married since they were kids, quiet. They've got the richest relationships. They've got long-term companionship. They don't go anywhere separate. They're looking out for each other. They have the richest lives. Quiet. She's barking for some reason. And trying to tell me something, and I don't know what it is. We have structural problems in our government, so it really doesn't matter how you vote that much, to be honest with you. We're screwed no matter what. It's just that with the Democrats, we're a bit more directly screwed because they're beholden to the Chi-Coms. This administration's owned by the Chi-Coms. It's a pretty sad state of affairs. Most of the governors, even the rhino governors, like that rhino governor in Arizona, Ducey, he's owned by the Chi-Coms. And what these Chi-Com-owned governors do is they made sure to shut their economies down, which was a big mistake, and now people are realizing it was a mistake. So we certainly were attacked. Trump got suckered into it, or he volunteered to take part in it. They all put Israel first. They're not America first. America's only first in that we're going to destroy America first. Then we go after the rest of the guys, the little guys around the planet, because America will not be able to defend. But America has stopped defending others. We're the bad guys on the planet today. One of my spiritual teachers said about 30 years ago, 40 years ago probably, that he didn't think anything bad could happen in the Soviet Union at the time, Russia today. But he knew bad things were happening here. And there were bad things happening here, and he was part of it, to be honest with you. He made statements that we didn't understand. We were so naive. We didn't understand what he meant when he said he was a teacher of Saturnalia, the old religion for the old sun that used to warm this planet. Anyway, structural integrity, returning to the Constitution and to the structural integrity that our founders gave us is the wisest thing we could do. For one, no matter how we come up with things, we're going to argue about it and we're not going to come to agreements. The bankers purposely have had us divided. And the FBI, they put their men in all of these weird programs and, extremist groups around the country. And they start a lot of the extremist groups. They started that posse comitatus stuff. They probably started the Friedman thing. They start a lot of things, and they have their people placed in those things, kind of like lightning rods. And whoever it is gathers around them, they target them. And case in point, that bullshit kidnap attempt on Governor Gretchen Whitmer, or assassination attempt, whichever it was. I mean, I'd love to see her grabbed up and tried for her treason. I think that's what should be done. You need to understand that you need a constitutional Congress. Your legislative branch is totally out of control and they're not doing their job. And that's where the biggest change needs to come. When it comes down to the presidency, he's not the commander-in-chief until the Congress summons him and puts him to work. So the Congress is his boss. They're the ones that tell the boy, you're going to lead the war. A limited war or an unlimited war. The Congress dictates that. But we've taken that responsibility away from the Congress. The Congress also, all budget bills, all expenditures, all appropriations have to originate in the Congress. In particular, the congressional part of the legislature. They don't do that. Too many of them are starting in the courts, legislating and ruling from the bench, which is a big mistake. I mean, I think that one of the worst things they did was Roe v. Wade. That was a bad judgment call. There's been some other things that are bad judgment calls as well. This qualified immunity where some jackass is immune from violating your rights, that's not proper. And so we're not free men anymore, not by a long shot. We live in a police state. And if you put Trump back in again, you're going to get more police state. And these two parties work together. One of them expands the police state, the other one puts it to work. Look at that DOJ and the FBI. Do you trust them? I don't. Would you want to work with them? Well, I tried. But at this point, we know if the FBI wants to talk with us, generally speaking, the FBI wants to frame us up and set us up and charge us with a crime, and that crime is lying to the FBI. But it's okay for the FBI to lie to us, to lie to you and me. And so all of these crimes that have occurred in the last few decades have gone uninvestigated, unsolved. The Kennedy assassination is not solved. And you're in law enforcement, I think you get fired from your job. If you can't solve that crime, then we don't need you. Go away. Go do something else. Go into something completely differently. Completely different. The King assassination, they didn't solve that either. Because if they solved it, they'd show that the FBI man across the way, the guy that owned the bar, was the one that initiated the assassination and shot King in the throat. And the physician at the hospital that was prepared, the emergency room that was prepared, finished King off with a pillow. You didn't know that, did you? Give this to the blacks. Let them know the truth about what happened to their guy. They need to know what happened. I guess his handlers, the Khazarian Mafia, the Edomites, were finished with their use of the man. And J. Edgar Hoover didn't like him at all, and he couldn't wait to whack his ass, so he did. He got him. He killed him, basically. So as every cop is a criminal and all the sinners saints. Yeah. The Kennedy assassination should have been solved fully during Trump's term, but the boy blew it. Also, he had a chance to pardon Assange, but nobody's going to pardon Assange. And Assange is in bad shape now. He's in real bad shape. His life has been shortened drastically. His health is he's not going to get his health back. He's in bad shape. It's said that we have a lot on Assange. Okay, fine. Let's make it public. Let's try him in absentia. Let's go ahead and make it public. Let the public know what it is that he did that was so bad. Because right now the public is worshiping him because they got some truth from him. They can't even get truth from the media, and they certainly can't get truth from these politicians. And by the way, the South was right. The South was better than we were. And the South kept the same Constitution, and they would have come right back into the Union. I'm convinced of that. But Lincoln decided to go ahead and wage war. Big bad mistake. Lincoln and his radical Republicans destroyed the Republic. And it got finished off a little bit better with that 17th Amendment. And then this, I guess it was a bankruptcy that occurred after that under Roosevelt. Roosevelt being one of the worst presidents. He was a Khazarian. He was one of the bad guys. And he sent everything over to the Soviet Union. He gave them all of our secrets. They didn't have to work too hard to get anything. No wonder they blew up an atomic bomb within 2 years. They had all of the work that we did that was handed to them. Centrifuge plans and everything were ferried up through the aircraft, through the Lend-Lease program that went through Alaska. We didn't know what those documents were. I think it was Major Jordan or Captain Jordan, his diary. Yeah, we were shipping uranium over there even. Shipped plates so they could print up cash. The American people have been carrying a much larger burden than what they realize. And the wealth and the labor, everything's been stolen from us. And the property's been stolen too. You need to return to patented land. That's the way our nation was founded. That way a man owned his land and it couldn't be taxed. It couldn't be taxed away from him. It couldn't be attached in any court case. If somebody had a complaint against you, they'd have to form a trust with you to work it out and get repaid that way. But they couldn't take your property away. And of course, the bankers were really kind and generous, and they weren't going to give us mortgages since the land could not be attached. So they gave us titles. And then eventually they gave us certificates of titles. So the land is taxable. And of course, if you're being taxed on your property, do you own it? No, you don't own it. So we're in la la land. We are so detached from reality, it's not funny. And the Democrats are pretty much delusional. And what's the underlying delusion? Somebody will give me something for nothing. But the Republicans are kind of psychotic. They're actually out of touch with reality. They don't even know what the hell is going on. The Republic was dismantled over a couple of centuries. They got to us in the War of 1812, and they got us to violate our own 13th Amendment, the original 13th Amendment, on March 4th of 1813. That's an important date. That's the old inaugural date for presidents. And that year they sat the attorneys, the Bar Association members, in the Congress in violation of the original 13th Amendment. I know you look it up and it's going to be regarding titles of nobility and stuff, right? No. That's a red herring. It was regarding the separation of powers. So we have to go to that. And I know the attorneys are going to freak out when we tell them, you got no citizenship because you're a member of the British Accreditation of Registry. I'm sure that can be worked out, and we'll set up some sort of an American association that won't start with the letter B for British, B for bastards. You don't need to reinvent the government. You need to bring back all of that structure the founders gave us. And if you're not sure why they gave it, then read their essays and their arguments about it. They argued intellectually and they put it on paper. Pretty brilliant minds. But at this point, we can say that it's failed. This isn't America. What we live in today is not the United States. We certainly aren't united, and we certainly do not have the freedoms that were guaranteed by that Constitution. The states, all policing, all policies, all policing was reserved to the states. And now, what did they do? They gave us the FBI. It was a different name. In 1913, it's the same year they gave us the Anti-Defamation League, whose number one weapon is defamation of character. It's the same year they gave us the Federal Reserve, which is not federal and has no reserves, and it's a bunch of thieves who were running a con job, a giant Ponzi scheme. And in case you're wondering, Alexander Hamilton was one of their men. Alexander was one of the name changers. Hamilton, his real name was Louis, French version of Levine. And he was a man of mixed races. Not knocking him for that, but I will knock him for the fact he was the Rothschilds' agent here in the New World. And he wanted George Washington to become a king. He wanted a monarchy. And he started basically our Uniform Commercial Code, or somewhat. He started our business underpinnings. He started all of those instruments for the banking system. My God, was he smart and intelligent for such a young, inexperienced man. It's because the Rothschilds were guiding him. Yep. How do you get this thing back? Well, you could take over the government in your county. You could take over the school board. That's a nice start. Where in the Constitution does it entitle anybody to a free education at public expense? Where does it authorize government schools? It doesn't. It certainly doesn't. I'm tired of being required to support these schools that produce an inferior product. They should all be fired. They should be. And you'll say, well, what will we do? What will the children do during the day when the parents are supposed to be working? Well, how about mom stays at home and takes care of the kid while father goes out and works? Or how about mom and dad stay home and work from the home? And both are available if the children need them for anything. So you have the full disciplinary power of both parents together and the guidance of both parents. That's the way it was until the Industrial Revolution. You couldn't break that team up. But then they decided to take America down, so they went after the family. And those family courts are not there to help families. They're not there to preserve families. They're there to decimate, to break up families. It's just like saying women's health is abortion when abortion causes breast cancer. You didn't know that? Go search it up in one of my old blogs. We got the statistics in there. It's such a strong correlation that we can say it's causal. And it only serves you right. You're going to go killing our children, claiming you have the right to do that, and you're not going to ask us? You're not going to provide us the opportunity to claim our own children? What about men's rights? It's not your body. You only contributed one cell, and we contributed the other cell. So we're in there 50%. Sure, you have to nurture the child. You have to bring it to birth. We can't do that. I don't care what these transgendered rainbow people say. We're not going to be able to do that. And there's something to be said about the way Creator Father Yahweh designed us, and a lot to be said for natural childbirth. There's things that are learned or not learned, lost, when you don't have a very natural childbirth. These cesareans are not good overall, because it is a learning experience. As traumatic as it is, it's particularly important for females, because they somehow, by going through that experience, are better able to birth children naturally, and they seem to lose the ability to bring a child to a natural birth if they've been a cesarean. That the cesarean was done in order to give them their first life breaths and get them out of the body. There's a lot to that. I don't specialize in that. I'm not an expert in that. And some of you ladies are complaining about the patriarchy. Well, the patriarchy protects your ass, supports you. And if you don't like it, that's tough. Because neither of us was designed to do it on our own. We were supposed to become a team and do it together. We need that team again. We need to pull that team together. So don't be upset at the patriarchy, because from what I see in the old records, the matriarchies ended up in a lot of death and destruction. Oh yeah, there's matriarchies where I come from in Alaska, and those women are kind of little shits if you ask me. They want to make the men their slaves, they really do, and they want to dominate. And of course, when the Amazons ruled the earth, they about made the men go extinct. And then they had a real hard time after that. So, you want to, and matriarchies have reigned supreme. Go look at Mount Edom, Mount Seir. Look at Esau, and who became known as Edom, and look at his children, and look at their culture. It's mostly in the book of Jasher. Some of it's in the Bible, but you will see that they were backwards compared to Israelite, and they had a matriarchy, and the Israelites, it was a patriarchy. And the significance of that is that if you read the Bible properly, you come to understand that the chosen ones don't have a matriarchy. So if there's a matriarchy there, they're not chosen. And you ladies will never understand a few things about us men. But, you know, Yahweh set the example pretty high. And he detailed love at first sight for Israel, the woman Israel. That's why Israel was described as a woman. And there's a lot of passages in the Bible about that. Go get the Bible and read it. Read it for yourself and find out how much the Lord loved Israel. A lot of you have issues with men, and a lot of men have issues with women. So what? You know, that doesn't mean you can't have a pretty good normal life. I think most people have issues with the opposite gender and issues with the same one too. You know, men don't get along completely, you know. And women, there's nothing more vicious than a cat fight, you know. So, be a little bit kinder and gentler to one another. Go buy my Bibles. Sit down there and read. There's some wonderful love stories in there, ladies. You need to read about those love stories and the commitments. I think you'll be amazed. I think it'll appeal to you very much and satisfy you quite a bit. I'll tell you, I got some more stories for you. So do like this video and subscribe if you're interested in catching things. I'm just keeping the other channel there for a while. I put up the Bible studies and the Bible readings on that channel, and for some reason they failed to upload properly. And I'm just going to leave it the way it is. And I've got everything backed up, but not well organized. And besides that, I just as soon talk to you again because I'm by myself. I have no children. I am pretty much the last of the Kents too. It's been quite a go. It's too bad that the rest of my family didn't live long enough to understand things fully. My mother, towards the end of her life, she started to understand things. I was so proud of her, and I couldn't wait to take her to the next level. And she needed to go to the next level. So I'm going to tell you that it gets real complicated. So you need to have good foundation, and you need to understand the basic story. You need to understand the original sin. And don't go blaming it on Adam or on Eve. Although if you have to blame one of the two, it would be more upon Eve than upon Adam. But we don't have good data on that. And rather than look at Genesis 3:14 and 15, I prefer to go to Genesis 6:2, because I think the real blame for the original sin needs to be placed at the feet of those fallen angels that conspired on Mount Hermon. Yes, the same mountain that Yahshua took his apostles to before the crucifixion. They conspired on Mount Hermon, and they decided they were going to keep their mouth shut about it, not talk about it to anybody, plus not even discuss it among themselves, among each other once they got off the mountain, lest anyone overhear them and discover what they were doing and what they had done. And there were 200 fallen angels at Mount Hermon, and the conspiracy was, hey, these daughters of these men are pretty good looking. They're fair. They're beautiful. Let's take them. So they took everyone for wives that they wanted. And as a result, they gave birth to hybrids, the men of yore, the great men. And they gave birth to some pretty weird things, too, on top of that. And there was some really weird genetic anomalies, especially in the promised land, in the land of Canaan. And those names for those different people, Canaanites, oh boy, Amalekites, all of those people there, the names actually characterize what their genetic differences were. One of them were the long-necked ones. Their vertebrae were enlarged. You know, a giraffe, and the giraffe neck is the same number of vertebrae that's in a man's neck. So it's the same design, basically. Same structure, except the vertebrae are thicker. And so one of those were called the long-necked ones. They had longer necks. Giants with longer necks. So there were some pretty weird things in the land of Canaan at that time. Okay, I got off into the deep, dark matter of these subjects. So you all sleep well tonight. Check back with me in the morning. I'm hoping that I'm giving you enough history that these videos that I'm producing will be timeless enough so that when you go back and listen to a previous one, it'll bring you more understanding. May Yahweh bless America.